Hi folks, Smudge here and welcome to Mastering in the Box, your home for simple guidance on digital mastering and digital audio. Last week I had the absolute pleasure in interviewing Conan Manchester, aka Conan Liquid. Now Conan may be familiar to you from the Crates Motel YouTube channel, but Conan is also a mixing and mastering engineer and a fantastic producer, having remixed for the likes of Blondie, Talking Heads, Radiohead and many more. Now Conan has been using headphones for around about the last 5 years, and this was my chance to put some questions to him and get his guidance on mixing and mastering exclusively with headphones. Now before we get into the content of the video, if you do want to know more about digital mastering and digital audio, then please make sure you hit that subscribe button below and make sure you tip that bell and select all to receive notifications on all of our videos moving forward. And if you like the video, please don't forget to give it one of these bad boys. Hi folks and welcome to Mastering in the Box, and today we have our first interview and I have the absolute amazing privilege of hosting Conan from the Crates Motel. How you doing, buddy?
Hey Smudge, how you doing, mate? Thanks for having me.
No worries, my pleasure. And I'm really happy to have you on the channel because, as you know, this year is going to be my year for mastering exclusively with headphones. But before we get into that, and just for the viewers at home now, can you just give us a bit of background about yourself and just let everyone know who you are and your experiences in the music industry so far?
Okay, where do I start? I'll be as brief as I possibly can. My name's Conan. Conan Manchester is my actual name. But I perform under Conan Manchester, Conan Liquid, and various other performance names over the years. I started very young in studios. My mum and dad were both musicians, and my uncle was a record producer. So I think the first time I was in a studio, I think I was 3-4 years old. I think I did some vocals from one of my dad's singles. And I just got the bug working in the studio. So I started doing summer jobs with my uncle in the early 80s as a tape op, and just really got the bug. So I guess I really started mixing in the mid 80s and started making my own tracks around about then as well. And, you know, just sort of came up through the ranks, I suppose. You learned everything from my uncle. He was my mentor, I guess. Started making my own tracks, like I said. I got into mastering probably around about 95, 96. What's been a thing throughout my whole career is a lot of the time when I've got into something, I've learned something, it's been necessary due to lack of money. So the reason why I learned to mix was because I couldn't afford to get a mix engineer. So I used to sneak in the studio after hours at my uncle's and mix down tracks. The reason I got into mastering was because I couldn't afford a mastering engineer. And that's sort of kind of how my career went. But anyway, yeah, got into mastering in about 96 and was there right at the beginning, I guess, of the computer age, the digital age, but I had a lot of analog equipment in the early 2000s. I was doing a lot of production and remix work, and we were being paid ridiculous amounts of money in those days to do remixes. I did a remix for Blondie. We got 10,000 quid, I think I got for the remix, and it took me a day to do it. And that was the kind of money we were having thrown at us. So I just kept buying analog equipment. For a good 10 years, I built up a massive studio with ridiculous monitors and compressors and mixing desks, SSL, all that kind of stuff. And then in 2010, I moved to Dubai from London and sold everything, just got rid of everything. I just went, I'm going in the box. Everyone thought I was absolutely mental and said, well, okay, we'll see you on the other side. Probably never hear from you ever again. And that's kind of how that's when I went in the box, basically, yeah. And I was still mastering. Well, I started mastering in the box, but I still had monitors. As soon as I got to Dubai, I bought some really nice monitors, Dyne Audio ones, which were great. I loved them. I knew them back to front. But I found myself kind of just having to get used to rooms all the time in Dubai and stuff like that. But basically, yeah, that's my journey. Started very young, and my journey through analog, getting into digital. Again, it was because of necessity. And getting into just using headphones again was necessity.
Fantastic. And you literally you DJ, you do producing, you also do some stuff for sync licensing, if that's correct. Mix and master.
Yeah, for adverts and films, stuff like that. Yeah.
Fantastic. And of course the host of the YouTube channel The Crates Motel, which is, you know, it's a great, I'll leave links at the end of the video because it's a great resource. So it's really worth checking out. But am I right in thinking, literally, some of these, your first major release goes back to 1998, and this was quite interesting. Sonny's theme signed to Strictly Rhythm.
That was my first major release. Yeah, I did have quite a few white labels out before that, but I was very, very lucky that I met a lady called Jodie Sharp, who was managing Reel to Reel at the time, who was signed to Strictly Rhythm. And she really liked some of my productions. So she sort of said as a joke, do you want to? I'm going to New York next week. Do you want to come to New York and meet Gladys from Strictly Rhythm? And I was just kind of like, yeah, whatever. And she organised it all and said, right, be at Heathrow at this time. I still kind of thought it was a bit of a dream because obviously I'd been buying and playing Strictly Rhythm stuff right from the beginning. I think I bought the first ever Strictly Rhythm record in 1989, I think it was. And yeah, I got to go to New York. I met Gladys, and she pretty much signed me on the spot. To be honest, it was crazy. To be honest, it really, really was. I was very, very lucky, just in the right place at the right time. And I guess I had a good 10 years of making club music under my belt by that point. So, I was kind of plugged in. I was very, very into a lot of the artists that she was working with. So I kind of feel like it was my destiny, but I didn't expect it to happen in that way, I guess. But yeah, 1998, first major release. Yeah.
That's great stuff. And then looking through some of it's like you said, you've remixed for Blondie, but some of the other artists I see remixed for, is it right? Radiohead, Grace Jones, Talking Heads, Tears for Fears. What was it like in that period? I mean, it must have been amazing doing all those different remixes.
It was a different time. I mean, nowadays, actually, let's start from the beginning. Yeah, in those years, I'd say from about 1998 to 2005, what I call the golden era, and I know a lot of other DJ and producers like David Morales, Master at Work, Todd Terry, those kind of people always also call it the golden period. We were being paid five-figure sums to remix tracks. It was just crazy. Big labels like Universal, Sony, EMI, they would have artists like Celine Dion and All Saints, Lighthouse Family, Blondie, Talking Heads, Radiohead, etc., and they would want dance remixes by DJs and producers because most of us producers then that were making club music were also DJs. It's kind of pretty similar to it is now, I guess. So they were throwing major labels that they literally had a dance department and had a blank checkbook, and they were going to the Miami Music Conference, and we'd all be sitting around the pool, and somebody would come over from Universal and say, oh, do you want to remix the latest Lighthouse Family track? And, I mean, that's kind of how we got a Lighthouse Family remix. Somebody came up to me and my partner at a conference, just said, do you want a remix? I like some of your stuff. And we went, yeah, okay. But, not massively familiar with their stuff, like a few pop songs. How much money are you talking? Oh, well, we can do probably something like £10,000. Is that okay? And we would just sort of sit there like nodding our heads going, yeah, yeah, that's fine. That sounds great. Brilliant. Okay. But we would do 2 or 3 of these a week. It was ridiculous. It was crazy. And I was very, very lucky to work with the stems from those artists. I mean, I never got to meet most of them. I got to talk to David Byrne from Talking Heads a few times, and Chris Stein from Blondie, I spoke to her a few times. And just really lucky to be part of that era in dance music, and what I learned is just amazing. It was incredible. So lucky, and so grateful.
Fantastic. And then just in relation to bring it back to current day, obviously with YouTube, what are you currently focusing on? Because I know once again, you've got lots of different things you're working on. Have you got a particular main focus, or are you still doing lots of different things at the moment? I know we spoke about DJing with COVID and things. It's probably a little bit on the back burner, but what's your main focus at present?
Main focus at the moment is the record label, Craig's Motel, which I'm doing probably maybe 2 EPs a month, sometimes 1 EP a month, but I'm just really, really pushing that. I'm getting to the point now where I want to start asking artists to put forward stuff for the label, because up to this point, I've just been putting out ideas that I've had for 20, 25 years, just really catching up on that and putting those tracks out. Also, obviously, my mastering and mixing, I'm still focused on. I've got a nice turnover from that. Most of it's dance music at the moment. There's a lot of, because of COVID as well, it's kind of gone through the roof a little bit. There's a lot of people who may not have had time to put tracks out and now, had time to, I've had people that asked me 5 years ago to master something for them, but they'd say, I haven't really got anything to master yet. Over the last year, they've all got in touch, which is great, I love that. It's really nice. It's nice that they thought of me. So I'd say my main focuses at the moment are the mixing and mastering clients that I already have, carrying on building relationships with them and building new relationships with new clients, and the record label, Craig's Motel.
So we've spoken before about my 2022 journey, and I'm going to be mastering exclusively in with headphones in the box, just with a real minimal setup. So when was it that you decided to go full time using the headphones, and what made you decide to use headphones?
I went full time on headphones in the box about 3 years ago. I'd been in the box since about 2010 when I moved to Dubai. And the reason for that was that obviously I couldn't cart all my stuff over from the UK. So I sold all my analog stuff and went 100% in the box. But I did carry on working in monitors initially. But because in Dubai, I hadn't bought a property, so I was moving around a lot. And I've always been a little bit of a nomad. It's kind of in my family. I came from a forces family, so they were moving around a lot of different bases. So we moved around a lot as kids. And I tended to move every year. So having to constantly get used to a new space all the time, it would sometimes take me a month, 2 months. Also in Dubai, I just want to point out, all the floors are tiled. There's no carpets. So you might even be able to hear a natural reverb now, actually. So getting used to rooms in Dubai was an absolute nightmare. And, I mean, I did it and I tried a few bits of software that helps you, balance your room and stuff, but it was just a nightmare. And also I was finding that when I would DJ abroad, sometimes I would get people call me and say, oh, Conan, can you do a mix down for me? Or I need a quick master doing, or we have a quick radio edit that needs a master doing. And I couldn't do it. So I just started sort of kind of toying with the idea of just using headphones because of that reason. And it was kind of organic. I didn't actually really sit down and think, I'm going to do this. I'm now going to switch to headphones. But it just started making more and more sense. And it got to the point where I was doing 10% of my masters in headphones, 20%, then 50%. And then clients were starting to say, what have you changed? What have you done? Have you changed your monitors? You're in a different room. And I didn't want to say, to be honest with you, I did it all in headphones. A lot of these tracks I was mixing and mastering in headphones. And I didn't want to say, because I'd already had quite a lot of grief from people when I went 100% in the box. They were like, why did you get rid of your SSL board? Why did you get rid of this? I had all these lovely compressors. And I'd have to find myself convincing them. So to have to convince them that I'm now doing all their mixes and masters on headphones, I was actually worried that it would damage my reputation, to be frank. But yeah, it just got to a point where it just made sense. I did all my assessing work on headphones. I did all my audio restoration work on headphones. I checked my low end in headphones. It was just something I'd always done since the 80s. Because getting low end in rooms can be difficult, and I just got used to doing it on headphones. So it just made sense. And so 3 years ago, I just suddenly found myself doing it in headphones. Then I sold my monitors and my amps and everything like that as well, and that was it. I was 100% all in, much like what you're doing this year, in fact.
Yeah, and I think it's one of the things that a lot of people, acoustics is such a deep rabbit hole to go down, isn't it? And you got to look into the size of the room, the makeup of the room, the structure of the room, and fabrication, and it can be such a minefield at times, can't it?
Absolutely. And I just, with the headphones, I suddenly thought, why am I battling against a room constantly? Why am I, having to make these adjustments, having to go out and listen to it on multiple systems? With headphones, it just dawned on me one day. I literally thought, well, I'm carrying my room around on my head. It's that simple. And that's really kind of the eureka moment I had. I just thought, I don't have to get used to it anymore. I don't have to get used to rooms. I don't have to fight the room. I just have to get used to how my headphones sound and how my headphones translate.
So having been mixing and mastering with headphones for quite some time now, what do you think the biggest positives are when it comes to mixing and mastering with headphones?
Definitely the convenience of being able to do it anywhere at any time. It's not for everybody. I want to stress that. But for me, it was perfect because I moved around a lot. And like what I mentioned earlier on about getting used to the rooms, not having to put out of any kind of outside influences, and to be honest, I prefer how my masters sound and my mixes sound now. I really, really genuinely do. I find just the way that I've always mixed, I've always been very, very particular about detail and transients especially. And so, transient responses in headphones, when you've got your workflow set up, what headphones you want to use, what DAC you want to use. So transients are very, very important to me, and I can really hear those in headphones. And so just those things really, the convenience and the detail. Like I said, I love detail, especially as a mastering engineer. So headphones just make way more sense to me, to be honest.
Okay, so we've covered what the positives are. What do you think the biggest challenges have been when it comes to mixing and mastering with headphones?
I mean, this is subjective, isn't it? I mean, it's going to be different for everybody, but I don't think I've really had any. There haven't really been any challenges. The biggest challenge was finding the headphones that suited me and finding the digital audio converter that suited me and whether I wanted a headphone amp. They were the biggest problems because when I started, there wasn't as much information on the internet about that because people weren't taking it seriously. So there wasn't a ton of YouTube videos on different headphones. So really, I had to go out and try different headphones out and see. There also wasn't SonarWorks wasn't as well established. There wasn't as many other softwares. It was kind of in its infancy when I was first really looking into it about 5 or so years ago. So the biggest challenge was at the beginning, just really deciding what headphones I was going to settle on and what DAC I was going to settle on. The biggest challenge for me now is not buying any more plugins. That's my biggest challenge, to be honest. But honestly, it really wasn't a big challenge for me. It's been a real natural, organic thing. And it's weird that a lot of the people I speak to that have gone the same route, other mastering engineers and mixing engineers that have now gone 100% headphones, they've said the same thing. It was just an organic thing that happened.
So how do you find then that your mixes and masters are actually translated since you've moved full time into using headphones?
I personally prefer the way that they sound just purely because of the detail involved. And to me, they just sound a lot more balanced. And I can really get inside the mix and the master a lot easier. Like I said, I always assessed in earphones. I'd quite often sit at the breakfast table or whatever in the morning, listening through the tracks I was going to be mastering or mixing that day. And I would always do it on headphones. So that's kind of one of the reasons why I did think it kind of makes sense to actually do this in headphones. But there's just way more detail open to me. I'm not battling against elements, and I guess it's the same as the moving into the box as well. Was that I found that I was fighting against things. Now I've always been into a really really quick workflow. I love to be able to just get stuck in, know exactly what compressor I'm going to be using, or what limiter or what EQ. And when I was out of the box, I was, you've got patch bay, you're repatching compressors, you're trying different things out. And it was just a pain. So a lot of my time was not really spent mixing and mastering. What I love about headphones, and I think the reason why my masters are way more balanced now and have a lot more detail in them, and just for me, just sound better, is because I can concentrate on the creative element. I can concentrate on really getting things sounding right rather than fighting against the elements, which is what I was doing all the time when I was working on monitors and with outboard equipment. Like I said, that kind of workflow isn't for everybody, but for me, it just suits me perfectly.
So we've spoken briefly about different headphones and making decisions about equipment. What's your current monitoring setup in terms of, do you go the DAC route or have you gone the interface route, and what headphones are you currently using?
I have the RME ADI2 DAC FS, not the Pro version, just the DAC. I've tried out quite a few DACs, some DACs that were way more expensive, but I just settled on the RME just because I liked it. As simple as that. And if you have the luxury of trying out different DACs, that's really the way that you need to do it. You need to try out these different DACs, and the same with headphones, which I'll get onto in a second. But yeah, with the DAC, it was RME because I tried out some Prism DACs. I tried out the Hilo. I had the Hilo for a while. I tried out merging Anubis, which is, they're all amazing, but they just didn't suit me. And it was the same with headphones. I tried out a bunch of headphones. Very, very lucky to be able to try out some of the headphones I tried. I literally approached some companies and asked if I could try them out, And I was lucky to be able to meet up with the reps in Dubai, and I was allowed to try out some Sennheisers, some Focal, some Audeze, Biodynamic. So I actively went out and tried loads of different headphones. The reason why I did that was because I decided very, very early on that buying a pair of headphones, I say this to so many people, buying a pair of headphones based on what somebody else says is like buying a pair of shoes that fit somebody else. It's pointless, because you may be told by your favorite producer that the Focal Pro are the greatest headphones in the world, and they might be for that person, but they might not be for you. So you have to really, you might find that a pair of £80 Sonys, I know you and me discussed these the other day when we were chatting, they might be perfect for you. And that's great, because that's what it's about. It's about finding the headphones that fit you. Now, when I now tell you that the headphones that fit me are the Audeze LCDX, there's probably going to be some people who will go, well, yeah, they're $1,500 headphones. Of course, they're going to be great. But I found that after out of trying out a lot of different headphones, and I had the money, I had the finance to buy them. And because of the work I was doing, I found that kind of financial outlay was worth it. And they just really, really suit me. I love the Audeze products. I also use the MX4s as well, but I do tend to make all my critical decisions on the LCDXs. So RME interface, Audeze LCDX headphones. I do also use an SPL Phonitor 2 headphone amp, which a lot of people say to me, why do you need to use that if the headphone amp on the RME is really good? It is really good. The reason why I use the SPL Phonitor 2 is there's just something about what it does to the sound. It doesn't necessarily color it. It just opens it up a little bit more. And also it's very hands-on. It's got a big volume knob. I know that sounds crazy, but I do still like to have my hands on a big volume knob. And it also has a crossfeed matrix, which I do use occasionally. I don't make critical decisions with it, but I do use it occasionally. So if I had to get rid of something, I could do without the SPL Phonitor 2, but I love it. So it's a DAC into the SPL, into my headphones.
Fantastic. And I think it's just one of those things, I think it's probably one of those untalked about things. When everyone talks about music, everyone thinks, oh, I'm going to get an interface, get this, get that. But it's just trying to highlight that when you get an interface, especially some more of, let's say, the lower end things, is by the time you think about, you've got your preamps, you've got your main outs, and the headphone amp is normally just a very small part of the overall interface, isn't it?
It is.
So it's kind of like, for me, it's kind of like just trying to get my head round. You don't need an interface unless you're doing some kind of recording, vocals or something like that. Then actually, for me, it makes more sense to go like the DAC route and get a dedicated headphone DAC or DAC and amp over an interface.
Absolutely. 100%. And I came to that conclusion through trial and error and through spending more money than I needed to. I like I said earlier, I didn't really know what I wanted yet. And the biggest challenge for me at the beginning was trying to work out, okay, well, what kind of headphones do I need? Do I need closed backs? Do I need open backs? What kind of headphone amp do I need? Do I need an interface with loads of inputs and outputs? So through trial and error, I've got to where I am. It wasn't through people telling me I should buy these things. It was literally through trial and error. And if you're going to be doing, what you're aiming to do, same as what I do, where you're just mixing and mastering on headphones, you don't need those ins and outs. You can have, for your YouTube, you can have a cheap, interface from Focusrite or something to do, for that kind of thing. But literally for your work, you just really need a decent interface with a good headphone amp. What I will say is I have noticed over the last year or so that a lot of interfaces are starting to put more time and effort into their headphone amps. And they are starting to use that as a unique selling point. Especially RME, for instance, they have started really emphasizing how good their headphone amp is. And I think because they realize that there is a switch, there are a lot more people that are making that switch because it's right for them. And therefore they realize that there's a bit of extra money to be made if they just add an extra 50 quid onto their interface, but they put a decent headphone amp in there. I think they're starting to realize that. And that's good. That's good for people like us. You can buy a cheap interface now for between, let's say, I don't want to go under 100 quid, but between 100 and 200 quid, you can get a decent interface with a decent headphone amp on it.
So we've spoken about some of the gear that we use. We talked about DAC interface headphones. Do you use any software to supplement your headphone mixing and mastering?
I have tried every single software I think they make. I'm pretty certain. If I listed them, I'm sure somebody would point out, well, you haven't tried this. But I'm fairly certain I've tried them all. I've tried them all because, again, it was part of my journey. I wanted to see if they helped me. And a lot of people said they're amazing. A lot of people swear by Sonar Works. A lot of people swear by the new Slate headphones. the Waves NX ones, acoustical audio, DFVR, good Hertz. I have literally tried them all, and they're brilliant, but they don't work for me. The reason why I think they don't work for me, do you know what, Smudge? This could change next week. I could be suddenly saying, oh, I use all these different softwares. But right now, the reason why I don't use them is because they color the sound for me. And I can't, for me, I can't get used to it. I'm not afraid to put up my hand and say, I tried SonarWorks for a month. I forced myself into just having SonarWorks with the EQ correction. I tried it a bit dry and wet. I tried it just affecting like the mid-range more. I tried different EQ curves that I set up myself that adjusted my LCDXs, my MX4s, and also my biodynamics. I use a couple of biodynamics as well. And it just didn't work for me. What I really wanted to, the whole point I made the switch to just using headphones and in the box was so that I could lessen the amount that I had in my chain. And by adding more software, to me, it just added stuff in the chain. What I preferred to do was get to know my headphones, get to know its weaknesses, get to know its strengths. For instance, my LCDX have a little bit of a dip around about 5K, but I'm used to that now. And I'm used to how a mix sounds in those headphones. And I know not to push the 5K too much. I know how far I can, that doesn't sound quite right. But I know that's because of the weaknesses in the headphones I'm using, because there are no perfect headphones. Let me absolutely categorically say that right now. There is not a pair of headphones on the planet that give you a 100% flat response, even with software. It doesn't exist. So for me personally, it was better to just get used to the weaknesses and strengths of my headphones rather than add more software, add more stuff in the chain. And also, there is things you have to take into consideration, the CPU it can take up, and, various things, that how it might affect your computer, how you might make decisions and forget that you've got the software on or forget that you've turned it off. And that's, I will say I do occasionally use cross-feed. I use Can Opener by Good Hertz sometimes, which is great, not expensive. I do use the Matrix on the SPL Phonitor 2 sometimes, but I never make critical decisions. I do also use the Wave NX program sometimes just to put myself in a space so that I know what it sort of kind of sounds like in a room. But I never make critical decisions, because if you start compensating for things, then the bass doesn't sound quite right on NX, but the bass sounds great with SonarWorks on. But, then you're just going to be running around in circles. But if you get to know your headphones, most importantly, then all you have to do is learn your headphones and learn how tracks sound on your headphones. And it just quicker workflow and just makes things easier. I like an easy life, and that's why, for me, it just complicated things. But there are some amazing bits of software out there, and every single week I'm seeing new software is being released by companies. There's a few companies that I beta test for that I can't say who they are, but they've got software in the making for headphones, which is incredible. I think it's great. All that stuff, embrace it. Try it out. If it works for you, then use it. If it doesn't work for you, then don't.
And it just kind of hones back to the point of the importance of referencing, doesn't it? Is if you can get to know your monitoring setup with your reference tracks and get to know them really well, then it takes a little bit of that out of the equation anyway, doesn't it? Because you really getting to know what your monitoring setup sounds like.
That for me is the thing which is the most important for me. Something that I definitely do a lot more now than I did when I worked on monitors is reference. I had a CD with 10 reference tracks on it, which I knew back to front, and with a couple of different genres. That was what I used when I went into a room with monitors. But now I have the reference. I add to the reference folder every single day, and it's really important in headphones. Definitely, you need to have reference for tracks that you like the sound of the guitar, tracks where you like the sound of snare drums, tracks where you like the sound of a bass. Keep it organized, most importantly. And because that way, when you master, you'll listen to a certain track and you'll be like, well, I really, the hats aren't sitting right for me, or the transients in the mid-range aren't sort of quite right. But I do know how, let's say Around the World by Daft Punk, one of my top reference records for club records, I know how that sounds in clubs across the world. I know how it sounds in a car. I know how it sounds in a toilet. I know how it sounds everywhere. So if I can make a dance record sound in the same ballpark as that record, then I know that I'm onto a good thing. And yeah, absolutely, referencing is so important. It's funny, one of the questions I get asked quite a lot is, if you had one plugin in the box, what would it be that you couldn't, one plugin you can't do without? And, you know, obviously as a mastering engineer, limiters are really important. A good EQ is really important. Good high end, low end filtering is really important. But for me, it's a referencing plugin. I use AD-PTR, which is on the Plugin Alliance bundle. That plugin gets used on every single mix and master I do, and I put my references in there, and it's just invaluable. It's just, especially when you're working in headphones, it just takes things to another level. It's just such a good plugin, and I don't work for them, and they don't pay me. It's an amazing plugin, and it's really important to get a decent reference folder when you're working on headphones. Absolutely.
So we've spoken about some of the gear, we've spoken about some of the software. What would you say is the essential, let's say essential starter kit for anyone wanting to go mixing, mastering full-time on headphones? What would be the basic setup you think they would need?
To be very brief, a computer, an interface with a headphone output on it, and a pair of headphones. I mean, that's all you really need to get started, but that's the easy part. The hard part is learning what your headphones strengths and weaknesses, what color the headphone output might add to your headphones. You don't have to spend a load of money. You know, you really don't. I would probably say try and steer away from using the headphone output on a computer. They have got better over the years, but you're just going to miss out so much information, and you're going to run into a lot of issues with the low-end distortion, especially. You're not going to hear that. Details, you're not going to hear that. So try and get a fairly decent interface. Like we said earlier on, you don't have to spend £100. You know, you can get a decent interface. I know a lot of people are going to shoot me down for that and go, no, you have to have a £2,000 interface, but you don't. And headphones, again, you know, there are some really, really good mixing and mastering headphones out there. Companies are putting new ones out all the time. They're developing. I know Biodynamic are developing newer, cheaper closed back and open backs for mixing and mastering that are brilliant for the price. AKG, Audio Technica, Sennheiser, they're all, I'm not saying they're jumping on the bandwagon. I just think they're realizing that a lot more people are having to do their work in headphones. So they're making them more comfortable, they're making them more durable, and they're making them sound better. And they're realizing that not everybody wants headphones that are hyped. I think if I was to say in terms of headphones, just try and make sure that you get something that's not hyped too much, you know. But if you're going to mix and master, you need to try and get something that doesn't have that hype, because you're just going to be fighting against it all the time. And you're going to wonder why your mixes, when you play them on another sound system, why isn't there any bass there? They sounded really bassy in my headphones. So just bear that in mind when you're buying headphones. Try and get something with a relatively flat response, or at least you know where the weaknesses are. You know if they've got a dip in the mid-range. It's it's easy to find the headphone curves of any headphones that are sold on the internet, so you can see what the weaknesses are and stuff, you know. And just bear that in mind when you're buying them. But you don't need to spend a whole load of money to get started, and you shouldn't spend a whole load of money to get started, because it's your knowledge and it's your experience and it's your ears that make the music good. You know, if you put a cheap guitar in Eric Clapton's hands, he's going to sound brilliant on it. But if you put a really expensive guitar in the hands of somebody who doesn't know what they're doing, they're still going to sound pretty terrible. And that's the same with headphones and DACs, really. You know, spend your time learning how music sounds in your headphones, learn your plugins. You know, that's what I always stress to people that I teach online and stuff like that. Learn your plugins, learn your headphones, you know.
Yeah, and do you tend to go for more of the open back design rather than the closed back design for your monitoring?
My LCDs are open back. I will make my MX4s are open back, so I will make my critical decisions on an open back. Again, don't necessarily listen to what people say we have to use open backs to mix and master on, but just personally, myself, yes, I tend to prefer open backs, but I do have a closed back pair of Biodynamics, because I just find that for certain work, especially in the low end, it's good to check them on closed backs. And obviously for tracking, you need closed backs, but we're not really talking about that. But yeah, if you've got the luxury of being able to have a closed back pair and an open back pair, then that's great. But you don't need to have both. And me personally, I prefer to work on open backs just because I feel like I can get more in the right space.
So we've spoken a lot now, obviously, about the equipment and your experiences, and just want to go back into some more of the experience side. So, do you take any additional steps when it comes to protecting your hearing? And when it comes to things like levels and monitoring, is there a certain level you kind of stick to when it comes to using headphones?
There is. It's really difficult to actually get an accurate measurement from headphones without really expensive equipment. So, it's kind of hit and miss. It's kind of through experience. I've never monitored loud, even when I was on monitors, and even as a DJ, the amount of times I'd be DJing and the DJ who comes in after me would walk straight in and go straight to the monitor button on the desk and turn it up, and I'd be looking at it and be like, "Why have you got the monitor so low?" And I'm going, "Dude, I've only got these two, and that's it." And you obviously work in the studio as well. You don't want to bash your ears constantly, so I've always monitored at low level, and that's carried through to headphones as well. You do suffer from ear fatigue a lot quicker on a headphone, so I can tell you that from experience. Maybe not everybody, but for me and other engineers that I've spoken to who work exclusively in headphones, you do notice you'd have to take a break every hour. And as I've noticed as I've got older, I'm in my I turn 50 next month, so my ears have lost the top end as well. So sometimes I do, I have to check it. And this is another reason why I like the SBL phonitor was I can see where the volume knob is, and I know when my DAC goes into my phonitor, I know where my phonitor needs to be for it to be the right level. So I try, and I like to be able to have somebody sat next to me in the studio and I can hear what they're saying whilst I'm mixing. Now that might sound really, really low, but that is actually still quite high. I try and aim for what I think would be an equivalent of about 85 dB if you were listening to in monitors. So that's where I also make my critical decisions at a low level. I was taught at a very young age that low level mixing is a much better way to mix. One, your ears don't get tired. Two, you don't damage your ears, but you can hear things poke out a lot more with low level, especially vocals, which is really the most important thing. Lead instruments, the mid range, where the mix matters, that you can hear it when it's low down. So yeah, I do. I take a lot of care of my ears. I do have regular checkups with an audiologist. When I say regular, maybe once a year, so that probably should change. I probably should do it once every couple of months. Just be really careful. It's really tempting to just push things up, and you can do that for 5-10 minutes sometimes, but just be wary of the fact that you do only get two of these, and once you damage them, you're done. It's over. So yeah, just be wary, and again, be wary of the damage that high end can do to your ears. So, there are for instance, there are certain headphones that I tried out which were really heavy in the high end. I'm not going to say what they are because it's not important, but I actually couldn't listen to them for more than half an hour because the high end was so harsh that it actually started to began to hurt my ears. So I knew if it hurt my ears, it was damaging my ears. So just be wary of that as well, which is why it's probably best to try and, if you're working for 12 hours in a pair of headphones, that's why you don't want hyped consumer headphones, because they'll be hyped in areas that will damage your ears. Absolutely 100% they will damage your ears. So just be wary of that.
Lots of regular breaks, get your ears checked, and just be sensible with the overall loudness levels.
Absolutely, yeah. It's so important. And also, you if your ears are tired, you're not going to be able to work properly. And if you're working to deadlines, and the first thing you do when you go in the morning is just bang your earphones up, in an hour's time, you're not going to be able to hear anything above 10K probably. So you're not going to be able to work properly. You're not going to be able to make critical decisions. So you have to kind of go for the long game, if you know what I mean. It's more important because you've got two massive speakers taped to the side of your head. So, it's right in your grill, and you have to be wary of that. So yeah, regular breaks. My uncle taught me when I was very young, the most important thing about being a studio engineer is knowing how to make a cup of tea. And I immediately said, "Oh yeah, that old chestnut, you just want me to make cups of tea." And he said, No, it's because it gives your ears a break. It gives you time to refocus. It gives you time to take the atmosphere in again and then go back in with a pair of fresh ears. Because if you don't have fresh ears, you can't do your job properly. And if you can't do your job properly, then you can't work. And that's it. It's that simple.
So the last question then, what advice would you give to anyone who's just starting their journey on mixing and mastering with headphones?
I think we kind of touched on it earlier on, and this can cover various different things, but don't believe the hype. That sounds a bit stupid, but I mean it in sort of several different ways. Don't believe the hype. Don't believe too much what you hear on the internet and what people tell you. You have to find, with headphones, you have to find the headphones that work for you, and you have to find the interface that works for you. Of course, I understand that most people can't listen to a whole range of different headphones and a whole range of different DACs and stuff, but just be really, really wary that, you know, companies out there want you to buy their product. People out there want you to buy their plugins. People out there want you to buy their amplifiers, etc. So, of course, they're going to tell you that their stuff is the best in the world, but it might be the best in the world for somebody, but it might not be the best in the world for you. So the biggest piece of advice I think I could give anybody would be, don't believe the hype. Find your own way. Find what's right for you in everything that you do in the studio. That doesn't just count for headphones. It counts for everything that you do. You know, you have to find your own way. You have to, like I said earlier on, don't buy a pair of shoes because somebody else tells you they fit them. You have to find what suits you, you know, and you'll just be way happier with your work that way, because I've been there. I've made the errors. I've worn a pair of headphones that I've been told were absolutely amazing, and I'm sitting there thinking, do I not know how to do my job properly? Am I missing something? Because these just don't sound right to me. They're not, you know, some of the software that I use as well, it just doesn't sound right to me. So find your own way, be a sponge, take in loads of people's information, go on YouTube. There's loads and loads of amazing videos. Your videos, of course, amazing. Mine are also amazing, but there's millions out there that are just as amazing, if not more amazing. Take everything on board, but find your own way. Don't believe the hype.
That's absolutely amazing advice. And I just want to reiterate, having you on the channel, doing this interview has been absolutely fantastic. I've been following your channel for some time now, and it's absolutely, I cannot tell you how great this channel is. Go online, have a check it out. Just for those at home, where can people find more about you?
My website, thecratesmotel.com. Obviously, my YouTube channel, The Crates Motel. Pretty much everything that I'm linked with now, if you put in The Crates Motel in Google, then you'll find your way to me. I will say this, through Facebook or Instagram or anything like that, or through my website, if anybody wants to ask anything, just ask. I'm there all the time. I love to help people. I'm like you, Smudge, you know, I just want to spread the word. I just want to help people. And so don't be afraid to ask questions. You know, if you want to know about the LCDX or any of the equipment that I've personally used, get in touch with me, ask me about it. I'm not going to give you advice on something I've not used. I'll just give you my opinion on stuff that I've used. And if I can help you in any way, of course I will. So just reach out. You know, that's what we're all here for.
Fantastic. And there'll be links in the description down below and in the comments section where you can get in touch with Conan, all these links to his social media platforms. So thanks again, mate. This has been absolutely amazing. Certainly helped me a lot. I'm sure it's going to help all the viewers a lot as well. So thanks once again, mate.
You're welcome, buddy. Thanks for having me.
So that's it for today's video. I hope you have found this interview useful. Conan is not only a very talented producer, mixing and mastering engineer, but he's also a fantastic guy. Thoroughly enjoyed getting his take on mixing and mastering with headphones. So I hope you really found the benefit of this. And please don't forget to show Conan some love. Check out the Crates Motel YouTube channel. Subscribe, like his videos and all that jazz. And just want to say a big thank you to Conan. Thanks for your time, mate. It is very, very much appreciated. As always, if you want to know more about digital mastering and digital audio, then please make sure you hit that subscribe button below and make sure you tick that bell and select all to receive notifications on all of our videos moving forward. And if you like the video, then please don't forget to give it a big thumbs up, as that will really help the channel moving forward. All that's left for me to say is I hope you'll keep safe and well, and I'll see you in the next video coming real soon.